Section 3.2 Quadratic inequalities in one unknown by the graphical method. So in this section, we will look at inequalities in one unknown, but these inequalities are quadratic inequalities. So an inequality is called a quadratic inequality in one unknown if the inequality contains only one unknown, usually the unknown is x, and the highest degree of the terms is 2. So let's look at some examples of quadratic inequalities. X squared plus 3x minus 4 greater than 0. So you can see the degree of this quadratic inequality is 2. So that's why it is called a quadratic inequality. Another example, x squared plus 3x minus 10 less than or equal to 0. We want to solve quadratic inequalities, and we'll be using the graphical method. So we will make use of the graph. Let's look at the quadratic inequality. Negative x squared plus 3x plus 4 greater than or equal to 0. By making use of the graph of y equals negative x squared plus 3x plus 4, you can compare. This is actually your y. So we are looking at the range of values of x that y is greater than or equal to 0. If y is greater than or equal to 0, we will look at the top part of the graph. And this part of the graph lies above the x-axis, and the range of values of x that would satisfy this quadratic inequality would be in between negative 1 and 4. So x would be less than or equal to 4 greater than or equal to negative 1, because we follow the same inequality sign. So that will give us the solution. But most of the time, we are not given the graph, so we have to sketch the graph. So let's look at another example. We will solve x squared plus 3x minus 10 less than 0 graphically. So we need to sketch the graph. So let's go through these 5 steps. First of all, in step 1, we have to write down the corresponding quadratic function. Next, we need to know the direction of opening of the graph. Since the coefficient of x squared is positive, the graph will be opening upward. This will help us to sketch the graph. Step 3, let's find the x-intercepts of the graph. So we will put y equals 0. You can use your calculator to get x equals negative 5 or 2. Once we have the two x-intercepts and we know the direction of opening, and by the way, we also know the y-intercept, which is negative 10, we are ready to sketch the graph. So we have got the graph which is opening upwards. We know the two x-intercepts, and we also know the y-intercept. So lastly, we want to read the solutions from the graph. So let's go back to the quadratic inequality. We are looking at the range of values of x where y is less than 0. So we are looking at the bottom half of the graph, and x lies in between 2 and negative 5. So we have the solutions to the quadratic inequality.